Poem 47. If a believer married an unbeliever, let him or her try to get a divorce, for the unbeliever will be sanctified by the believer. 1 Corinthians 7 verses 12 to 16. 12 Now to the rest I say, not the Lord, if any brother has an unbelieving wife and she consents to live with him, he must not divorce her. And if any wife has an unbelieving husband and he consents to live with her, she must not divorce her husband. For the unbelieving husband is sanctified by his wife, and the unbelieving wife is sanctified by the brother, since otherwise your children are unclean. But now they are holy. But if the unbeliever leaves, let him leave. The brother or the sister is not bound in such cases. But God has called us in peace. For how do you know, wife, whether you will save your husband? Or how do you know, husband, whether you will save your wife? Self-reflection. How can I live in peace with an unbelieving spouse? How can I use this passage to help me guide my decisions and actions in my marriage? What is God calling me to do in my relationship with my spouse? How can I ensure that I am honoring God in my marriage and respecting my spouse's wishes? What is the significance of children being holy in this passage? What is the best way to respond if my spouse chooses to leave the marriage? How can I use this passage to strengthen my faith and trust in God's plan for my marriage? How can I use this passage to help me develop a deeper understanding of my spouse and our relationship? What can I do to make sure I am living in peace with my spouse, even if they are an unbeliever? 1 Corinthians 7 verses 12 to 16 is a passage from the New Testament of the Bible that talks about the importance of marriage and what should happen if one partner is an unbeliever. In this passage, Paul is offering advice to Christians who are married to unbelievers. We know this question is a burning issue that should be addressed. He acknowledges that it is a difficult situation, but encourages them to remain together if the unbeliever consents. Paul explains that when a Christian is married to an unbeliever, the unbeliever is sanctified by the Christian's presence, and the Christian's children are thought of as holy, rather than unclean. However, if the unbeliever decides to leave, Paul makes it clear that the Christian partner is not bound to stay in the marriage. Paul's advice here is ultimately rooted in love, as he encourages Christians to stay together if at all possible. He understands that it is a difficult situation for the Christian partner, but he also knows that God is capable of working through difficult situations. He encourages the partner to remain in the marriage if at all possible, in the hope that it could be a way for the unbeliever to eventually come to faith. In summary, 1 Corinthians 7 verses 12 to 16 is a passage that speaks to the importance of marriage and the difficult situation Christians can find themselves in when married to an unbeliever. Paul encourages the Christian to remain in the marriage if the unbeliever consents, as it may be a way for the unbeliever to eventually come to faith. Ultimately, this passage is rooted in love and trust in God's ability to work through difficult situations. Let's read the poem. In the realm of faith and love, we find solace, guided by the words within his holy palace. In Corinthians chapter 7, verses 12 to 16, a message of harmony, a sacred bond we glean. In matters of faith and love, I now convey a message not from the Lord, but from me today. If a brother has an unbelieving wife by his side, and she consents to live with him, let not love subside. For if she stays, let not divorce be the way, and if a wife has an unbelieving husband, I say, if he too consents to live, let love remain, in unity and harmony, let them both sustain. For in this union, a sanctification unfolds, the unbeliever, by the believer, is gently enfolded. And the unbelieving spouse, in turn, is made pure, their children, no longer unclean, but holy, for sure. But if the unbeliever chooses to depart, let them leave, let them follow their own heart. In such cases, the brother or sister is not bound. For God has called us to peace, where love is found. For who can say, dear wife, if through your love, your husband's heart will be touched from above? And who can know, dear husband, if by your care, your wife may come to know salvation's flare? In peace, God has called us to dwell. To navigate these paths, we must excel. For in the realm of love, hope may arise, and unbelieving hearts may find their prize. So let us hold on, in faith and love so deep, trusting in God's plan, even when shadows creep. For He alone knows the outcome, the grand design, and in His peace our hearts and souls align. Let love be the guiding light in this holy dance, and with patience and grace, give it every chance. In unity and strength, let love triumph and bind, faith's beacon shining, a testimony will find. So cherish the bond with love's enduring flame, and let God's peace guide you, in His holy name. For in these verses, we find wisdom and grace, a call to unity, in every time and place.